name is Gary Lash. I'm the CEO of the YMCA of Northwest Louisiana. I want to welcome all of you here and thank Southern for allowing us to be able to use this facility and participate in this needed forum. We had a forum similar to this at our YMCA over off of Knight in Preston, and these gentlemen plus Clay Walker was on it, and now Mr. Randall is head of Youth Justice, and Jeffrey will be introducing these people to you. But you know, we acknowledge that these officials see crime when it gets to them. It's up to us, all of the citizens in the city, to help prevent crime before it gets to them. One thing that we're doing is building ball fields. We're building out a Little League property that the city, the state, the parish has supported that in order to help redirect some of these youth. And this thing got real exciting to us to be able to put these things together. And it came home about 3 weeks ago, was it, Chief? We had a shooting at our BHP YMCA.
Yes.
There was some young men playing pickup basketball on a Sunday. 4 of them, about 5:30, went outside, finished to go home, get in their car. There were 3 guys waiting for them, had been out there for 2 hours in a truck. They jumped out and just started blasting. One 20-year-old man died. One other was shot. In a parking lot, there were kids around, there were people around, and we were just fortunate no one else got shot. It had to do with some altercation that began away from the Y, and that's just where they all caught up to each other. And I was able to talk to Chief Smith tonight. It's the first time I've been able to tell him this. There were 12, 15 police up there during this whole situation. It happened on Sunday like till 10 o'clock. As it settled down, the officers were collecting evidence and such. And the officers, men, women, black, white, Hispanic, were standing around talking, and to a man, they expressed how Chief Smith has their back and supports them. That was very impressive to hear that. And tonight I was able to tell him that, and I wanted you to know that, because when that police force, all of them, support the leadership, they're going to work hard to not let him down. And that was again very impressive to me as it became so real and had this shooting in our parking lot. So I would encourage you to influence the people that are in your hula hoop every day, in your circle of friends, and the kids that you might come into contact with, to influence them to make a better way instead of some of the things that we have. These gentlemen here tonight certainly are involved in helping to change this community, and I think they're all working really hard to do that. So one thing that Dr. Goree also helped us establish is we have a water safety program for all second graders are bused to the YMCA during the school term. And I think Dr. Goree had done this at a location where he came from, over in Texas. And I went to him thinking I'm going to have to tell this long story and, you know, convince him, and it was 2 sentences. He said, I'm in. So we've been doing that for 5 years. We've had 15,000 kids come through that water safety program. It's an in-water safety and out-of-water safety. So these gentlemen are doing things to help change our community. We need to support them, and we need to work at home to make our kids better that's in our community. So I appreciate that. Now Jeffrey Goodman is our Director of Marketing and Development. He's going to introduce these gentlemen and tell you more about this forum. But thank you so much for coming and Southern hosting this for us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. I wanted to welcome all of you. My name is Jeffrey Goodman. I'm the Director of Marketing and Development for the YMCA of Northwest Louisiana. We really appreciate all of you making the time to be here. I've been working really hard with Ms. Irma Rogers, who is the president of MLK CDC. That's correct. Ms. Rogers and I will be co-moderating tonight's discussion. Tonight is the 8th panel we've hosted at the YMCA of Northwest Louisiana as part of the Shreveport-Bossier My City, My Community, My Home initiative that we launched in February of 2022. We've also published 81 podcasts as part of this initiative, and you can find video of all 81 episodes and the first 7 panels on the YMCA of Northwest Louisiana's YouTube channel. A few quick notes about tonight's format. We have a 45-minute program where you'll hear from the 4 panelists, as well as a few community leaders who are working really hard to build a stronger community for all of us to live in. We expect tonight to be very informative and full of valuable information. We just ask that you please be respectful when someone's speaking. At the end of the 45 minutes, we will take questions from the audience. If you have a question, please write it on a note card, raise your hand, and one of the students around the auditorium, please raise your hand, students. We'll pick it up, and they'll bring it to Ms. Rogers and me, and Ms. Rogers and I will review all the questions and ask as many as we can in the final 45 minutes. And then lastly, a number of organizations have tables set up outside in the atrium. At the end of the program, they'd love to speak with you about ways we can all get more involved in making our community healthier and safer. So thank you. All right, so as all of you know, we're here tonight for the Crime Prevention and Resource Fair. We'll first hear from the following people who are seated in front of you: Mayor Tom Arceneaux, Superintendent Dr. Lamar Goree, Chief Wayne Smith, and Andrew Randall, who is the Director of Juvenile Services for Caddo Parish. Then as I mentioned, a number of community leaders will speak who have programs in place that are models of some things that are working. So I'll begin today with Mayor Arceneaux. Mayor Arceneaux, my first question is, could you please talk about what you see as the role of the mayor's office in crime?
Well, it's one of my top priorities. And while I have ideas about law enforcement and prevention, I usually rely on the experts around me and to whom I have access, one of whom is to my left and your right. The good news is I think we're making progress. In May of this year, SPD hosted a symposium on crime funded by a federal grant called a Public Safety Partnership. It brought together local, state, and federal law enforcement officials and stakeholders from the community. Just to give you an idea of who that was, that included the Shreveport Police Department, Caddo Parish Sheriff's Office, Caddo District Attorney's Office, City Marshal's Office, Louisiana State Police, Justice Department, the Drug Enforcement Administration, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, as well as community leaders, to work on a concrete plan to tackle crime. This kind of cooperation and collaboration and communication will help reduce the crime rate over time. It takes a while. We didn't get here overnight, and we won't get out of here overnight. But it will reduce it over time. Drafts of parts of the strategic plan that will result from this symposium are due on January the 15th of next year, not very long from now. And they will include specific action steps, not just for the Shreveport Police Department, but for all parts of the community to participate. One of the most important aspects of law enforcement today is smart policing. That means using technology and cooperation to improve the apprehension of criminal suspects and deterrence and prevention of crime. Examples of smart policing include the implementation of the Real-Time Crime Center, the use of license plate readers to identify and follow vehicles, and the use of drone technology for observation and investigation. In addition, law enforcement agencies in Caddo Parish, including Chief Smith, the sheriff and their staffs, and the school board, have the knowledge to wage war against crime. They have proven they can and will work together. The Caddo juvenile court judges and staff know about juveniles and criminal enforcement for juveniles. Everyone is willing to sit down at the table and work together. They, as well as federal officials like the FBI, ATF, and the DEA, cooperate and collaborate on a daily basis to investigate and solve crimes, as well as to share intelligence, which is very important, sharing intelligence perhaps to prevent crimes. One of the things that I think we should emphasize is that from a law enforcement standpoint, we are mostly responders to crime. Hopefully, if we're effective in our response, eventually that creates deterrence and that creates less crime in the neighborhoods. The law enforcement officials, including the chief, know more than I do. My job is to get them as many resources as I can to do their jobs, and I hope I'm able to call everybody to the table. So far, that has been true. We've had several meetings with multiple law enforcement agencies, and I have regularly met with the chief and his leadership to make sure that we're providing all the resources that they need to have to do their job as effectively as possible. That's pretty much what my role is. I'm not the expert, but I have access to experts.
Great. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, good evening. Our next presenter will be Chief Smith from Shreveport Police Department. Chief Smith, you presented the strategic plan at the forum that was held and hosted by the YMCA in July. Would you mind reiterating the strategic plan and the 3 goals, since tonight we have a different audience here? Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk about it. It didn't take me very long to realize that there are so many great people here within our community that has wonderful ideas about how to address our concerns. And many of our concerns are the same. They're simple concerns. And you know, one of the mistakes that we make sometime in trying to address problems, we look for very, very complex ways to address it when the answers are very simple. It's just sometimes the simple answers takes a lot of effort. What I learned within my organization and throughout this symposium, how to improve what we do and how we do it. As time evolves, the old must be put behind you, and you must embrace new technology and new ways of doing business. Working smarter. Intelligence-led policing is one of the ways we're looking forward to in the future, attempting to address the crimes that's affecting our community. In policing, we realize that there is a small percentage of our population that creates the majority of our concerns. We have to work smarter through our intelligence-led basis to try to address that small percentage that's causing us the greatest extent of our problem. Second, crime prevention. I have been around these parts long enough, some 44 years, to remember when crime prevention was very, very high on our priority, and we focused a lot of our attention on preventing crimes before they occur. We're going to have to re-implement strategies that focus on crime prevention. Part of that is going to be an education process for myself, understanding what it is currently today that's causing us our problems. One of the things moving forward, we had the opportunity to travel through our public safety partnership to see what some of the best practices are around our country, what seemed to be working for other agencies and other cities. We found that there was a thing called a Police Chiefs Advisory Council that meets on a monthly basis, and this is made up of people in the community that have to endure the stresses of the community, that meet on a monthly basis and advise me of what it is that's causing problems in the community, and bringing ideas to the table, what we as a governing agency can do to help the community address those problems. That is forthcoming. We found means to fund that project. The contracts have gone through the legal process, and that's going to happen real soon. So don't be surprised if someone calls you, send you a letter, and say, I'd like for you to be a part of this committee. It's good enough to say I want to be a part, but it's great to step out there and put forth the effort to make a difference. Another important component of that was our goal is to increase communication between us and the community. Quite often, through the different media outlets, you hear so much about the things that don't go so good in our community. Why aren't we the best ambassadors that we can be for our community? We live here, we love it. There need to be more good things that are published, and there are so many more great things that's going on in our community than you realize. We plan to begin to address that by enhancing our social media networks. Just to give you an example, I'm a firm believer that people want to hear good news. Early in the year, we began to post good things on the police department's website, on our Twitter and our Facebook page. Within weeks, we went from being in the below 10,000 followers to now over 45,000 followers a day, because we're publishing the good things that are going on around our community. People want to hear that. So communication, we realize, is an important part in keeping us connected to our community. And we want you to know what your police department is doing to better your community.
Thank you. Our next question is for Dr. Goree. And the question is, could you speak about how you see the school system's role in crime prevention?
Right, thank you. And first off, thank you everyone for coming out tonight. This is such an important topic as we look at what truly will move our system forward and our community forward. When I think about the school system's responsibility as it relates to crime, I think about it's an old statistic that, students are only actually at school 19% of the actual week. And that sometimes will lead educators to be a little frustrated about, well, how much can I really affect things like crime when we actually have the children in our care for such a small time. But what I stand tonight to tell you is that we are a school system that truly does believe that every child deserves to be educated in a safe environment. And if we're going to truly believe that, that means that even the school system has to take ownership of everything that we can do to create that safe environment and ultimately to deter and to prevent students from even thinking about activities of crime. We've always been a system that embraces our responsibility around educating whole children, and that means that we have to do more than worry about whether they can do the reading, writing, and arithmetic, but we really have to look at every child from a whole perspective of how are we creating the very best person possible. And of course, that involves those academic skills, but there's a lot of social skills and a lot of decision-making skills that go into play with that. And I thank Gary for pointing out a program that I'm so proud of when you think about things like Swim for Life, because what we're doing there is we're creating a group of students who have this water safety where they can too grow up and be safe around water, but also make sure that they're creating that skill to where they are a stronger adult as they go into our community. Now, when we think about crime and things that we're doing within the school system, we are very much focused on our social-emotional platform. And in that respect, we're looking at how we're managing things around mental health and providing support for students as they are matriculating through the schools. So happy to see Kasie Mainiero, who leads that division with the support of Shante Dukes tonight. And this is a division in our school system that really looks at how are we making sure that we're providing that social-emotional support to students as they go through and learn to make better decisions and to make better choices for themselves. Now, a part of that, too, is ensuring that, and we know that through the last few years, if not even before that, from a mental health perspective, there's a lot needed to support our students, and we have developed holistic platforms around that so that when students are in need of additional mental support, we're providing those supports to students. We've developed systems around decision-making and really building through our Tier 1 social-emotional platform where we're truly building those resilient skills. when we're building those quality decision-making skills, when we're looking at discipline from the restorative practice space, so that students, as they grow up and as they get older, and certainly as they enter into the adult field, it is our hopes that we're providing them with those skills to make better decisions. Ultimately, we are a system that takes responsibility for knowing that unless we create those strong behavior skills, those strong decision-making skills, those social supports within the school day, we could never educate you or the person next to you to your fullest potential. So we are a system that owns that space, and we know that especially with some of the things that we see and that we receive in the schools, we have to take ownership for developing and helping students to make better decisions and to be more productive. So we stand prepared to continue to do that as a school system.
Thank you.
This next question is going to be for Attorney Andrew Randall with Juvenile Justice Services. Attorney Randall, what are the contributors to the crime situation that we're seeing in our community that we are currently facing? What do you think those contributors are?
Thank you, Ms. Rogers, and I want to say thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. First of all, in overseeing It's better? All right. Again, thank you for having us here this evening, and of course, having the opportunity to represent the parish and overseeing juvenile services. We are responsible for the Juvenile Detention Center and, of course, juvenile probation. So it goes without saying that once the children interact with our part of this entire matrix of this system, several things have already gone wrong. We're here tonight, of course, for a crime prevention and resource fair, because there's no way that you can talk about crime without talking about the underlying things that are connected to crime, such as education and economics, which tend to drive that. Here in Shreveport, we understand, or in Caddo Parish, we understand that we have a poverty rate which is comparable to cities of our size, like Little Rock and Jackson, but about 30%. And so by the time we get to the children that come into our facility or that are under our caseload, when you begin to see them, they are children that are coming from largely homes that are broken, largely homes that are economically disadvantaged. And so, as the old proverb goes, it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Well, part of what we do here, and I see this entire panel representing the partnership that we've been able to forge across varying agencies in our area to build that child, to try to build that child. I see the purpose of juvenile law or juvenile justice to be largely restorative. And so it's in that process of restoration that we're trying to address the economic and educational issues that undergird and drive so much of the crime that we are seeing. But the typical child that comes into the facility has several issues at home. There may be some, there are at times where there are unaddressed trauma or even mental health issues that we make inroads or efforts to address. And certainly generational poverty and educational issues that rear their head. And so it's more complex than just addressing the criminal act itself or the delinquent act itself without addressing the things that drive it.
Can you expand with some of the figures we're looking at right here about COVID, when we had COVID incidences, and what we're looking at with COVID and this increase, and what is the current state of juvenile crime?
Sure. Unmistakably, as it was around the world, everything changed, during the COVID time. And one of the things that was most prolifically affected by COVID that manifested itself with respect to the children we see is certainly the issue of truancy. I believe the numbers you see in front of you there, in 2021, it explodes from 304. The numbers we see with respect to COVID, let me say it this way. The numbers exploded with respect to truancy. And so we found now, and it's simply my underlying philosophy, that today's truants become tomorrow's delinquents. So if they're not going to school, if they're not pursuing education, well, we pretty much know where the logical track of that ends. And so we see a lot of that. With respect to what we see in terms of crime and how that affects. There are 60,000 children throughout Caddo Parish. In 2022, we had 338 of those children that came in and out of the juvenile detention center, with only actually 90 of them being repeat offenders. It is, of course, quite popular to say that all of our children are running amok and running astray. But when you look at it across the arc of all of the children we have, we see that we're dealing with a very specific and concrete, population of children that we're trying to help. That number was only slightly up from what we dealt with in 2021, where there were 304 children that were admitted to the detention center with a recidivism or repeat offender rate at that point of only 66. So when you understand those numbers, you see what we're actually concretely dealing with in the center and with the facility itself. But make no mistake about it, COVID did have a dramatic effect on how it is the patterns of which our children were going to school, and then ultimately where that showed up in the detention center.
Ms. Raj, can I add a little bit to that about COVID in the school system, if I may?
You
I'll
may.
go quickly about that.
Go ahead.
But I do think one thing that's important to note is that pre-COVID, we had gone through what was called ACEs training for all of our children. This is adverse childhood experiences, and there's research that shows around showing that the number of different situations, like a parent in jail, poverty, being raised by a grandparent, some of these adverse experiences that don't speak to the traditional family, that there is measurable research that shows how it affects children. Now, what I offer you today is that as we've gone through COVID, we've identified COVID as an adverse childhood experience for every child, and that there are certain things that were created because of COVID that will forever change the trajectory of how our children process and make decisions. Now, what I tell you is something very simple, is that I think we all will admit that during that time, there was not very much discipline in our homes, even with our own children. There was just no discipline because, people were trying to decide if I would even be alive in a day or 2 days or even a month. So I think that the things that and the way we programmed and things that children were allowed to do. I think freedom with social media, which became a way of communicating with each other, and how we use that to create these new gangs or friend groups, whatever we want to call them tonight. But I think all of that plays into what we're dealing with today. And I think that even as we look at how we process and manage children, it's different from how we did that pre-COVID. And as we become more aware of that through things like smart policing, we are going to make better decisions and hopefully be able to bring some of our children back to the center as to how they're making decisions as they move forward.
Thank you so much for those comments. Coming back to Chief Smith, juvenile crime is a hot button issue within Shreveport right now. Can you speak some about your partnership with Juvenile Services and how you at SPD plan to address juvenile crime?
Smart policing, as he spoke of, is going to become an everyday household name to us, working smarter, because over the course of time, we have to change with the change in time, finding better ways to address juvenile crimes, better ways to catch juveniles before they commit crime. We have partnered for a while with organizations here in town that provides the police, once we discover someone who is truant or someone who is past curfew, a place to take them. Communication is a big piece, SPD, plans to continuously be in conversation with Juvenile Services to understand, very clearly what it is we can do to help them and what they can obviously do to help us. But as it's presented, juvenile crimes are becoming a big concern, big concern for us. They're becoming very, very smart. But I tell you, last year I had the fortunate opportunity on Saturdays to visit with some programs that Compassion for Life was having, and learn so much from people who are in the system, from juveniles to adult. And I tell you, one of the most prominent things that I learned is that hope is never lost. There's always a way to fix, to mend, to change. But you know, one of the, I guess, most important parts that came out of that that meant so much to me is everybody agreed, and this was about 4 or 5 Saturdays, everybody agreed that it started early in their life when they began to drift off course. The family structure was so important. Paying attention and being able to address and get someone back on the right course before they get too far. Some of the things that I learned was things that I already knew, but it just confirmed it, that it have to start within the community. It's got to start at home. To mend things, it's got to start away from juvenile services, away from the Shreveport Police Department. It's got to start at home, and we can really, really fix that.
Thank you so much. I'm going to continue. We know intelligence gathering is crucial to getting information to solve crimes. We also know, particularly among children, there is a no snitching cultural dynamic. How do you respond to the culture of no snitching? Also, how do you respond to citizen concerns about their safety being protected if they do decide to share and cooperate with the police in terms of information?
Absolutely. Smart policing comes to mind again. We have embraced technology that helps us to do our jobs, and I won't talk too much about that. But in addition to that, our city IT department is in the process of developing something special for SPD and for the city of Shreveport. And I'll tell you a little bit about it. Everyone has a cell phone, pretty much. Everyone has email. We are developing for the city of Shreveport, and I talked with Dr. Goree about it a couple of years ago, and the idea, we were going to start with Caddo Parish Schools, but it's something that our entire community can benefit from. We are developing a way for you to communicate with the police via email, via cell phone, and within seconds of you sending your information, any means of identifying you goes away, gets lost. You know, it's kind of the Crime Stoppers principle. We love to have your information. We don't necessarily need to know who you are. But one of the big concerns for our community is just as she explained. Is there a way that I can be identified? Well, if you want to share your information with us, that is forthcoming, and there's no way we can identify you. Call Crime Stoppers if you want to get paid. Call SPD if you want to help.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, the next question is for Dr. Goree, and the question is, the school board, the parish, and the city have made a significant investment in the harbor. How do you see its effectiveness as a resource for addressing issues that our children and families face?
Thank you. And one thing, you know, thank Kelli Todd's here tonight, and thank her and her team for all of their work with leading what we see at the harbor every day. And a little bit about what the harbor is. The harbor is an opportunity for us to bring several different social services and several different things that our families need under one roof. And this is an opportunity for us to get families access to that quickly. Now, just a quick backstory is that the conversation about the harbor, or this concept, really started with a conversation that I had with the district attorney probably right after when he was elected at first, and it was around how do we find ways to, and we've seen this done in other parts of the state, how do we put these resources, things like Social Security, child support, family counseling, domestic abuse counseling, how do we put these type things under one roof, because these are things that families need. You know, in early conversations with Kelli and even with Clay, Clay, who's here also tonight, I remember we would have conversations about when you really looked at those things that were causing children to be absent from school, how do we help families deal with those issues? And then we went on a couple years there, but after COVID happened, the number of children for truancy that our juvenile judges were seeing was just astronomical. It was out of hand. I mean, it was to the point to where you had students who had missed a significant number of days that they just could not provide services to. So that kind of sped up the conversation around how do we make this really happen. So Caddo Parish Schools had a building, a commercial building that had been on the market for years and had not sold. So we decided, let's take this building, let's partner with these different governmental bodies, and let's bring the resources all under one roof. Let's put it on the bus line so that instead of the judge maybe having to see the families, or even when the judge sees the family, they can direct them to one location where they can receive the services that they need. You know, one thing you look at, and I'm a firm believer that 99.9% of the parents in the world want the absolute best for their children. Now, that best is limited to what they know and what their resources will allow them to do. Many times we would see families that just didn't have transportation to run from one governmental agency to the other to do those things that were necessary to ensure that their children were in school. We've taken that away. Wonderful, city provides free bus services. So what we do is we put all of these different agencies, and we're adding on every day. We're doing additional renovations to the building every day so that we can bring more agencies in, so that when families are experiencing these situations that prevent them from getting their children to school, we're quickly getting them to those resources. We have a food pantry in there that's just first class. I mean, just everything's just coming out really well with how we're designing the building and utilizing it for resources for families. And I do think, that Attorney Randall spoke to, we're in a community where over 70% of our school-aged children are being raised in families of poverty. And when you look at some of those issues that poverty creates, we as a community, if we're going to be the best we're going to be, we have to do everything we can to fill in those gaps where possible. And that's what I see the harbor as doing. It's really filling in a lot of poverty gaps and things that are opportunities for us to help those parents to overcome poverty so that their children can run and be successful. We know every child can run and can be successful. We preach about children being able to chase their wildest dreams. If we're going to really mean that, we've got to do everything we can to fill those gaps that are being created by situations out of control of children so that they can be as successful as possible. And that's exactly what the harbor is doing every day for this community.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Smith, citizens have heard a lot about the shortage of police officers, yet there seems to be a perception still that more police activity is given to other areas of the city as opposed to some of our African-American neighborhoods. It seems like either the response time is quicker or the officers are more present in other places around the communities. Could you speak to that?
Sure. A while back, a study, an independent study was done that gave us some definite directions about how manpower allocations should take place within our city. Many factors were considered, with the number one factor being the demand for service in the community. Strictly that, the demand for service. And it did not matter whether you live in North Shreveport, South Shreveport, East or West, but it was purely by the documented demand for service. So that's how people are put into place. To give you an example, Area 1, most of our city is divided into 4 areas, and most areas have 3 to 4 patrol district beats within that. But in all of the areas, the demands for services are different. To give an example, Area 1, which is where we are right now, which encompasses downtown Shreveport, it encompasses the area that we're in, it encompasses Grimmett Drive, it encompasses all around there. This area, Area 1, has the very lowest demand for services overall. So 58 officers are assigned to Area 1, and that is to patrol and make this community safe 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Area 2 is assigned 69 officers. Area 3 is assigned 75 officers. And Area 4 is assigned 78 officers. So a lot goes into the size of the territory plays a factor. How long it would take an officer to get from one place or the other. But manpower allocation assignment, it is not done haphazardly. There is a method behind it. When we graduate a new academy class of people, just to give an example, maybe 10 people, how they are placed is calculated in which of these areas is the most short from having their authorized strength. So there is a scientific method behind it. And you know, I do regret that is the case, that it may seem like things are not impartial, but they really are. The time it takes someone to get to a call, we are well within range of the national statistics average, but so many things get computed in that time when someone gets a call. The distance they're away from that call, but the most important thing, whether someone is available or not. If you've got 3 officers assigned up in this area at 7 o'clock, and the 3 officers are on a call when a non-emergency call comes in, well, that is put in skew until someone is available. They would not take someone off of your non-emergency call and send them to someone else's non-emergency call. So it may take 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, it's when someone is available. But if an emergency call comes in where life is at danger or there's a possibility that someone gets hurt, that's a priority 1 call that trumps everything else. So if the officer is not complete on your non-emergency call, he'll have to come back because he got to leave and go to where that priority 1 call is. And if not enough people is available, just because you are in area 1, you are not alone. The next closest officer, I don't care where he is, dispatch is going to send them that way. If you have to send them from Queensboro, send them from Moretown, have to send them from Southern Hills. But if there is an emergency call where life is in danger or someone has been shot, help is coming no matter where it is here in this city, and vice versa.
Thank you very much. Since July, can you talk about the developments now that the strategic plan is starting to roll out, as it gets rolled out?
Absolutely. Some great things are taking place even before it occurs. One is the Chiefs Advisory Council. I am so proud to see that come about. I had the opportunity to visit Baton Rouge and see how theirs work, and it was unbelievable how the chief got educated when he was talking directly to people who live in the community that were not only talking about the concerns, but brought possible solutions to the table also. I'm looking so forward to that. But we should have that plan sometime in January to roll out to the mayor, and sometime soon after mid-January, probably get it out to the public. But it is coming together great.
Thank you. The next question is for you, Dr. Goree, and the question is, what are the primary issues that our school board faces in terms of being able to serve families and reduce truancy? Also, what are some of the resources the school board has in place to address these issues?
Right, so I think time and opportunity is the biggest disadvantage we have, is that, I spoke earlier about, in the reality of life, children are at school for 19% of their week. So they're not with us a lot of the time. So I do think that does create a challenge to us. Also, just our ability to govern when they're not with us. It's something that's it's 100% out of our control. Now, I do think if we look at our school board, when I talk about commitment to those things that will go far with creating, preventing crime within students, I'm so proud of our school board and some of the commitments they've made. I spoke earlier about our social emotional learning platform where we do adopt and we put quite a few resources into ensuring that all of our children have that tier 1 platform around that social emotional support that they need. I think when we look at the physical health of children, our school board has been very committed to increasing those healthcare facilities with our partnerships and putting medical clinics in many of our schools where we see there is a desert to availability of high-quality health insurance, and we've been very committed to doing that as well in our schools. We partnered, of course, with mobile dental units, things that create happier children, that generally create children that make better decisions as they're moving forward. I think, too, when we talk about restorative practices, our school system has been very responsive to doing things that will help in that space, and, of course, then just continuing to not only let the thermometer, the measure of our academic performance be the only thing that guides us to knowing if we're successful, but also building in those things through our safety and through our security system to show that we too are committed to safety in those manners. I love the Chiefs because when we talked a couple years ago about that opportunity for students for people to be able to turn in information and not be tracked. We've even set up those, we have Let's Talk, which is an anonymous way that you can go on the website and send information. We have barcodes in our high schools where students can turn information in, and that goes to our Let's Talk platform. So we, too, are setting up those platforms so that our students can learn in a successful environment. Also got our new Director of Security, Don Gibbs, with us tonight, who has done an amazing job of coming in and just really changing our focus on how we look at what it really means to create a safe environment. And I don't want to talk about incidents are down because I don't want to jinx us. But again, we have seen some positive results from the way we're managing our students, especially at the high school level, on a daily basis. And we have some challenges. When you think about things like guns and drugs and things of that nature, they are out there. And it's something that we really do have to be very intentional about supporting and making sure that we keep these things out of our school, and we're working diligently every day to make sure that happens. So I do compliment our board, who has been very responsive, 100% responsive, I would say, in anything that we do to try and deter or to deter crime, but even more importantly, to create safe schools for everyone that attends them every day.
Thank you.
Okay. This is for Attorney Randall. There is a misperception of what you actually do in juvenile services. How is the Juvenile Detention Center set up, and what do you see as juvenile services' role in crime prevention?
Yes, I do agree that there is a misperception of what it is that occurs at our detention center. Let me just start by saying it is a jail. It is a jail, and it is a secure facility. There are 24 beds in our facility. There are 3 pods consisting of 8 persons each in each pod, and they are single bunk, which means they are in a cell of their own. Our staff is especially trained to deal with the children in a manner of de-escalation, in the sense that, again, the principal purpose of juvenile law is restorative and rehabilitative. So these children are not being locked in solitary confinement with water and bread slid under a door. They receive 3 meals a day. They attend school and they attend classes. We have a full-time medical staff that attends to their needs. We have a mental health counselor, by which, again, some of the issues that are underpinning some of the behavior that is there, they have an opportunity to have those matters addressed while they're in our facility. It is very clear to them. It's not a pleasant experience. They are away from their friends. They're away from their family. They're away from their freedom in large measure. But however, we try to create an environment, again, that is restorative. If you imagine, if you will, so much so that there have been incidences where children literally, for the first time, are able to sleep and eat. They're in an environment where no one's shooting at them. They're in an environment where they don't have to fight. We single bunk, which means that our children, we have 0% sexual assault because those things are not occurring. And so it's a safe rehabilitative environment where we can try to, along with the help of all the other resources that I'll talk about in a moment, bring to the table to help chart children and their families on a better path. There have been instances, believe it or not, where children have literally come, knocked on the door, and requested to be charged with something, just so they could be safe. That speaks to the work that the employees that we have there do with them. It speaks to the environment that we provide, while at the same time they're having to, deal with the penalty for the behavior that is at hand. But having said that, I mean, not only do we have that, we have children that are there, but then there are, as you all know, children that commit more serious crimes, and they are transferred, which means they're being tried as adults, and they are housed at CCC. Our current population at the detention center right now is there are 23 children in there, ranging in age from 13 to 17. Currently, there are 13 children that have been charged as adults that are housed at CCC. 8 of them are 17, 4, 16, and then we have one 15-year-old. Their experience is somewhat different from what it is that we experience every day with the children at the juvenile detention center. However, that is the state of incarceration relative to our children. But it's not only the detention center. We have the probation officers, and of course, Dr. Goree mentioned Mr. Clay Walker, who was formerly the director of juvenile services, who is now our assistant parish administrator, who is here. I see our the president of the commission, Mr. Roy Burrell, who was here as well. But there are also 2 gentlemen here that are supervisors in our probation department, Mr. Carlos Tate, Mr. Quentin Collins, who can tell you about the nature of the children that we have on probation. We currently, right now, have 604 children that are on our caseload that are seen by our probation officers. 75 of those children are on monitors. It is a significant enterprise that we undertake every day to intervene with these children. So our probation officers, are dispersed throughout the parish on any given day, at schools, at homes, and otherwise intervening with children and their parents, connecting them to appropriate resources to, again, help right the ship and build out the community. We do that, and we also partner. Chief Smith mentioned some of the things that SPD does in concert with juvenile services, but there is a constant intelligence sharing operation. There is our participation in the VCAT, or Violent Crimes Abatement Task Force, by which we are intentionally addressing some of the issues that arise with children. For instance, as everyone knows, there is a significant problem with gun culture, not just with our children, but it is definitely acute among our children. We in concert with law enforcement, are able to address that and try to get guns off the street. In fact, from 2022 to this year, we have, through our efforts with SPD, been able to confiscate over 139 illegal weapons. That's weapons that would be used to commit some of the more serious crimes that we see in the mail. So we are working in those efforts. Our officers, this isn't day camp. We're not patty caking with the children. We are trying to hold them accountable while at the same time manifest the public trust that they've given us, because our ultimate responsibility is to keep the public safe. And that's what we do, in addition to trying to rehabilitate these children. And so this is what our detention center does. This is what our probation officers do. And we do that in concert with some of the persons that you'll be talking to tonight, the community resource agencies, the other persons that are connected. The harbor has been an amazing accomplishment, because it represents the manifestation of a collaborative effort of so many agencies that allow us to really do what you're expecting of us, which is to help families and ultimately keep the public safe. And so people need to understand that it's serious to be in the detention center, but they also need to understand that if your child happens to be there, we treat your child as if they are our child. That is irrespective of race, that is irrespective of culture, background, religion, or age. We will treat the children humanely and rehabilitatively, but at the same time, consequentially, depending on what it is they're in there for.
Thank you so much for that. Trust me, we pray for you and we'll be praying for all of you. We really appreciate all of you coming out to speak this evening. We're going to pivot the program right now and give some resources to all of those who are here that may not know about some of the programs that are connected with what you're talking about. Jeff?
Thank you. And they'll each have 2 to 3 minutes to speak, and then from there we'll move to the Q&A portion between the audience and the panelists. And so first we'll hear from Carla Buntyn. Carla is the Executive Director of Compassion for Lives.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me tonight. My name is Carla Buntyn. I'm Executive Director of Compassion for Lives. Compassion for Lives, we've been here for 10 years. Today is actually our 10-year anniversary. We've come together at Compassion for Lives as a like-minded group of individuals that started this organization back in 2013. It consisted of social workers, human service workers that all came together because we wanted to go out and service our community. We currently partner with Caddo Correctional Center for 10 years. We did the reentry services there for Caddo Correctional Center. What we do there is we go in and we provide, we start with the young adults first of all, you guys at 18 years old. And what we found was a lot of those 18-year-olds typically come from juvenile services. So we go to Caddo Correctional and Bossier Parish Max, and we offer career readiness. We offer mental health, which is substance abuse, and now we've started offering dialectical behavior therapy. Our licensed clinical social worker, Vanessa Smith, is the co-founder, and we found for years that job readiness was the thing that we were doing for years. So we thought that would be the key. Over years, we found out education was the key there. So we started offering career readiness, and so with that career readiness, the men started to take advantage of the education. They started to bring in family members, sisters, brothers, cousins, it didn't matter. So what you'll see here, I'm going to show you a little bit. Going to give you a little information. We started originally with Johnny Gray Jones, with Clay Walker, back in 2013. We started with the youth. But we found our way, we wanted to get more into the adults, the young adults. We did a job fair, this was in 2022, all ex-offenders. Some of those ex-offenders are very young. They're 18 years old. This is a company that we partnered with here in Shreveport, and they hired a lot of those men there, which was also a key. We thought that was the key, which was jobs. We have so many young men now coming into the organization. Like I said before, they're bringing in family members to start our GED High-Set program. We also partner with Northwest Technical College. So now most of our participants are taking education instead
1 minute,
of...
Carla.
I'm sorry?
1 minute.
Okay, I'm so sorry. So you're gonna just take a look here at some of our volunteers that comes in and participates. They come in for career readiness and job development. We have a GED High-Set program online 100% with a live instructor, which has been truly effective because most of our guys do not have young adults, GED High-Set, nor a diploma. This is one of our participants, Dexter Sullivan, primary example. If you come to us, Caddo Correctional, completed GED High-Set. We did career readiness. He's just graduated yesterday from Northwest Technical College. We have all of our men who's taking advantage of education. I'm currently doing a study at this time on how education contributes to criminal activity amongst the ages 18 to 25. So at Compassion for Lives, you guys, we're there Monday through Thursday, 8 to 5 p.m. We go into Caddo Correctional 3 times a week, Bossier Parish Max once a week, and we help those individuals with career readiness, job development, GED High-Set, and then also we help them any type of transitional living in housing. You have any questions, you can get with us. You'll see here, Chief Smith come out and did a root cause symposium. We did root cause symposiums last 2 years to show what the root causes of criminal activity is in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. And just before Kasie starts, all 4 of the folks that you hear from have tables set up in the atrium and would love to speak with you at the end of the program to provide additional information. So now we'll hear from Kasie Mainiero. Kasie is the Child Wellbeing Specialist for Caddo Parish Schools.
Hi, Hi, good evening, everyone. I know that Jeff is going to cut me off really quickly, and we have so much going on in Caddo right now, in Caddo schools, in the Department of Child Wellbeing, so I'm going to try to speak very quickly. But what I realized it was about the same time, 2013-14, when I was a very new principal in a school that was a very large school in Caddo Parish. I had some kids who were dysregulated, and they were showing their dysregulation in their behaviors. And their behaviors were things like kicking people, willful disobedience, getting in a fight, flipping over chairs, all of these things. And I realized very quickly that that dysregulation and those behaviors were about something that was underlying, that was going on at home, that they had many, many problems, drug abuse in the home, neglect, all kinds of things. And we had to figure out, because I had a conflict in my heart about sending them home and just expelling them from school. I could not believe that that was the right thing to do when what they were coming from was a hard place. And so I reached out to Clay Walker and that team over there and tried to get with them about, look, these kids who are, like what Chief Smith said, we need to reach them when they're the youngest, like when they're really young, to change that trajectory. And so I reached out and was like, what can we do to keep these children from becoming the kids who are going to juvie later? Well, I found that it takes a village, and y'all have all heard that old African proverb about it takes a village to raise a child. What I also found out was there's a second piece to that the child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. And that's what our children were doing. We're showing their burning down the village by flipping over chairs or yelling or hollering or not paying attention in school. And I said, you know, we all have to be this village that comes together to help these children. And so I reached out to our community agencies to help us figure this out, figure this problem out.
One minute, Kasie.
Like Chief Smith said, one of the things is that it's the easiest thing that sometimes is the solution. And what we came up with was we have 5 big rocks for every school, trauma-informed education at every school, making sure kids feel welcome and wanted at their school, inclusion of outside agencies, wraparound services, and like the harbor, the wellness curriculum that Dr. Goree talked about, the attendance focus. We have tasks set up to help with the truancy issues, and we're really honing in on what's going on at that home. Why are they truant? Why don't they come to school? Alternatives to suspensions and expulsions. And then the climate and culture change, which is that change at that school where everyone realizes that we have got to help these kids. We've got to see these kids for what's going on, what's wrong, and we've really got to address those needs, look them in the eye, and tell them that we want them there, we care about them, because y'all, when that kid feels like they're wanted, then they will stay in school, and then they will do great things. But when they feel like they are not wanted at school, that no one cares about them, I mean, what would make you want to come to school if nobody cared about you?
Time, Kasie.
Okay, so these are all the things we're doing. Look at all these amazing, just take a picture of all these amazing things we're doing in Caddo Parish schools. Y'all, we are doing, and thank you, Dr. Goree, for giving me the opportunity and giving me and Shantae the opportunity to be in this place of service for the children of Caddo Parish schools, to be able to help coordinate some of these things. We're doing wonderful, great things in Caddo. Thank you. There's, oh, whoops.
We really appreciate you guys, but we want to save a little time for the audience questions. Just to let you know, we're not trying to be ugly.
Thank you. And we'll now hear from Bishop Shaun Cooper from School of Greatness, and I'm going to cue him up just for a second. So juvenile probation, juvenile detention center, the SPD, they all deal with children once they've gotten into trouble. But when your probation is over and your case is over, people are generally out of your life. It takes community partners to sustain engagement and involvement with children and families. Bishop Cooper, can you talk about how your organization does that?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Well, let me just tell you a little bit about the backdrop of School of Greatness. School of Greatness is a leadership and mentoring program aimed to reach at-risk students, to reinforce the importance of education, inspiration, and dedication. Okay. Our mission is to ignite a sense of identity and purpose in at-risk kids, equipping them to reach their maximum potential. Our motto is turning at-risk into high achievers. We model greatness, exercise greatness, with the intent to wake up the kids' dream machine, that they can change the world. The School of Greatness is about teaching students to think out of the box and move beyond their present struggle and find their place in history. We have 4 guiding topics that we deal with. I know who I am, I know the potential I possess, I know where I'm going, and I know how to get there. In fact, our saying is that I know who I am, I'm a leader, I have potential. I love God, I'm called to his purpose. I know the potential I possess the potential to change my circumstances and the world. I know where I'm going to places of success, promotion, and prominence. I know how to get there by education, inspiration, and dedication. We have our own curriculum called the 15 Points of Greatness, where we have our own curriculum. Give you an idea, number 5, greatness is not can you start, but can you finish. Greatness is more about character than charisma. Greatness is not a dream killer, but a dream maker. We have 9 actual mentoring modules. We have after-school mentoring, middle school, elementary. We have summer detention, alternative to detention, CPEC, which is the parent mentoring, greatness clinic for leadership,
1 minute.
and also community. Our PowerPoints is that we do creative reading and writing, self-discovery of purpose and career field, entrepreneurship, character education, emotional, intelligent, critical thinking, problem solving, embracing change, music, arts. We've mentored over 1,800 kids. 97% of the kids that stay in the program graduate. That's very essential. We've mentored 144 kids in the alternative to detention, and we've had a 98% completion rate. In other words, when the kids come into the School of Greatness that's been in detention, actually the judges and the detention center submit the kids to us. They come to us, they go through the program, and that allows them not to go back into juvenile. 98% of the kids that come into School of Greatness after detention completes the program. And so we want to make that available to you all, let you guys know what we're doing. We're impacting the kids. We would love to have more mentors, and we need more resources. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, we'll hear from Kelli Todd. Kelli is the Executive Director of Volunteers for Youth Justice.
I knew better than to bring a slideshow because that would be cut off like y'all's. So I think I have just one slide, but I think Dr. Goree pretty much covered the harbor. But I will put it up just so you have something to go
Other
by.
way, Kelli, other way.
I'm working on it. It's dark. Okay, it's not working for me. Okay. I'm Kelli Todd. I'm the Executive Director for Volunteers for Youth Justice. We're a local nonprofit. We've been around since 1981. Everyone at the table to my left, we try to keep all of our kids away from them except for Dr. Goree, because we do want our kids to go to school. But our goal is to intervene in a kid's life so that they don't get involved in the system, the juvenile court system, or any kind of truancy issues. We serve about 7,000 children a year in Caddo Parish, and we were able last year to divert over 1,800 from the juvenile court system, which is great because we all know what happens when you get in the system. It's not that our system doesn't do a good job, but they get backed up, their cases get put on hold, and they kind of forget why they're being punished in the first place. One of our most extensive programs and busiest program is our conflict resolution program. That was developed in coordination with Dr. Goree, Clay Walker, and several others in the audience. So when kids get into a school fight, instead of arresting them and suspending them from school, they have the opportunity to come to this program where it's referred by the Caddo Parish School Board principals and assistant principals, and work out their conflict, return to school, and serve the rest of the time in school. We know how important, y'all have heard all the truancy numbers. It's so important that they're in school and not being just sent home for 7 days, because then they're missing out on so much. Our schools have so many good things that Kasie just talked about going on, but if they're not there, they can't get the materials. We also have the truancy numbers that Andrew shared with you. That's us. We deal with all the elementary truancy cases,
1 minute, Kelli.
3,500. Got it. 3,500 cases. we're the ones doing the casework, and that's hard casework. These are parents that sometimes just need help, and we're there to give them these tools to get their kids in school and try to keep them out of court. But what Andrew said about the 13 kids that are in CCC right now that are under 18, all 13 of them started their life with a truancy issue. They started in the juvenile court, and their first touch with life, with the juvenile court system, was truancy. So that is really important. What we've learned over the years is collaboration is key. Is very important that we start early. We've moved a lot of our programs where they started at age 14. Now we're all the way down to like 4 years old, because the earlier we can intervene, the bigger impact we can make on a child's life and a family's life. Dr. Goree already touched on the harbor, but if anybody wants to get more information, we have a table outside. Those are some of the programs we have there. We took all of our programs, put them there, and we've also got a lot of other nonprofit agencies there that can provide services. If anyone wants to help, we're always in need of volunteers, mentors, and people to help us out at the harbor. So visit our table outside, and I know I'm out of time.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
So, thank you all so much. We'll now move into the final portion of the program where we've received a number of questions. Like we said, we'll try and ask as many as we can. Ms. Rott, do you know which one you want to go first?
We have currently about 16 or 17 questions. If you see the DECA students in the blazers, they will bring your questions to us. They're holding up their cards. Thank you. Since I have 2 people asking this, we're going to go ahead and start with this. Do you feel safe in your community? And this is for our panelists. Do you feel safe? How safe do you feel in your community?
And you guys can answer as you see fit.
You know, I'll jump in. I think it's interesting because my wife and I recently had this conversation, and I actually do. And I travel throughout the entire community through my involvement, of course, with the schools. And you know, whether it's sporting events, whether it's visiting schools, whether it's shopping, I truly do feel safe in the community. Now, I do think that, you know, when you look at the news, you wonder, well, where is this happening? But I can say I feel safe in the community.
And I have to agree with you. I travel all throughout the city, not as a police officer when, you know, I'm off duty, and I have no apprehensions about going anywhere in this city. And I agree with you 100%. As I said earlier, what people hear the most is the worst. That happens very frequent, not too often, but you don't hear much about the great things that are occurring around this city.
Well, I'll speak. I travel all over the city, and I usually travel by myself, and I feel safe in every situation that I go in. I rarely go in a situation. I do have a ride tonight, and I will have to leave in about 5 minutes, so I apologize for that. I have another meeting after this. But I generally feel safe, and I feel secure. Most of the crime that we have experienced, particularly most of the homicides this year, have resulted from people who know each other and have some relationship with each other, obviously not a good relationship with each other. And so I think that's something to keep in mind. Any homicide is a homicide too many, and we mourn every single one of them. But most of these they're not random, so you're not likely to be accosted by somebody. The only thing I will say, we're up on auto theft, so make sure you're locking your cars good there.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move to the next question. Next question is, the idea of a traditional high school diploma for some kids is not an option. Can you talk about some alternate programs and resources that exist for the kids in our community who are not fit for a traditional education path? What programs exist to provide them skills and ensure they are employable?
Right, and you know, I'd argue that I think we can get every child to a high school diploma. I do think where there's not the option, we do have the HiSET program, which is an alternative, which is what we used to call GED, and we have some wonderful, Carla spoke of how she offers that through her program. So we do have many community partners and opportunities to get that high school diploma. But I think it's more important to know that we're now in a system, and I'm really glad, if you go back to 2000, the big movement was No Child Left Behind. And that was really the conversation about every child had to graduate and be ready to go to college. Really smart now that we know that there are many other avenues to a successful, productive life other than going to college. Now, in that respect, we as a community have really embraced and really worked towards how do we improve not just our college opportunities, but our career opportunities for children as well. In fact, that's some energy that has been growing and growing in our community, and we're really excited as we go into next year to note that that will be our big focus. How do we increase opportunities to develop students in the career space? So please know that in Caddo Parish Public Schools now, we do utilize our career centers. We have several, all of our high schools have different career paths that are housed on the campus, whether that's things like welding, hospitality, cosmetology at one of our schools, and just a host of different pathways that children can take advantage of. And this is a space that we do look to continue to grow upon. I think it's important to know that we work very closely with our Northwest Louisiana business forces, with our manufacturing departments, and with our auto department, so that we make sure that we're not only training children, but we're training children for jobs that they can work in this community in. So we're really building a lot of the work around what are those jobs, and many of them are high wage jobs that students can work on in this community. And I'll go quickly with one thing. I'm just so proud of a partnership that we have with Grambling State University, because I think it's important to note and for us to say that there was a time that people believed if you started a career path that meant you can't go to college, and that's not true. If you look at cyber innovation, there's a huge space here for cybersecurity, with cyber innovation being over in Bossier. We have a partnership with them, and we're looking at this, just astronomical number of jobs that are unfilled every day. Many of them require just a certification. So we're offering those certifications through our partnership with them. But I think it's important to note, though, if you get that certification and you decide, I want to go to college, we have a memorandum of understanding with Grambling State University where you can go right into their cybersecurity program to work toward a bachelor's degree. So we want to break down all stigmas around that. If I go the career path, that means I can't go to college. We're preparing you to go to college in both paths. It's just we're preparing you if you decide to take advantage of the career path and to go to work to the workforce or start a family earlier, that too is an option.
Thank you so much.
I would just add to that, I think it's important. I agree with everything Dr. Goree said, but I think it's also important. You asked about agencies. Well, Goodwill is a partner with Juvenile Services in addition to Job Corps, because there are children who, for whatever reason, aren't able to complete or do not complete necessarily the traditional track, whether that's the attainment of a diploma or even the HiSET equivalent, but they are willing to pursue vocational development. And so these programs and resources help them. And not only does it help them, you'll find generationally often when there's one person in a home who is stagnant in a vocational or educational space and they are part of our system, they got a sibling or a cousin that lives with them that is similarly there. And through the partnerships that we have with those agencies, you're able to not just help that one, but also, to give direction to the entire house. And so I would just encourage those of you who are interested in that, certainly to stop by the Goodwill table and have some conversation with them about how those resources can be brought to bear in your homes.
And let me jump into that also. Here a few months ago, through Mayor Arceneaux, the city of Shreveport partnered with Louisiana Technical College to help students get ready for the job market. And we are actually taking technicians in that final semester in the technical college, bringing them to the police department, to our maintenance shop, letting them work alongside ASE certified technicians actually in the field to help get them ready for the world that they're about to face. And many of them, I'm so happy, are going to fill a lot of our vacancies. We're going to keep them there. So thank you, Mayor Arceneaux, for that.
I'm gonna have to leave. I thank you all for being here. And I'm going to leave you with the experts, as I said, and so I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, this next question is kind of a two-part. So give me a moment. The Johnny Gray Jones Youth Shelter closed on November 30th. How is that going to affect how we address juvenile crime? Second part over here is the Caddo Parish millage failed to pass. What effect does that have on what you are able to do with juvenile services?
This is juvenile, okay. Well, of course, Johnny Gray Jones closed on November 30th, and it was a youth shelter that housed what we call status offenses. That's our ungovernable children, that's runaways, even some truancy and things of that nature. So it's a different population than those that we would typically house in the detention center. So I just want to say at the outset, the closing of Johnny Gray Jones does not mean that children that otherwise would be incarcerated are being released into the streets. So it didn't result in that. However, it does create, some difficulty with respect to some of the resources that are available for the situations that I just mentioned. Obviously, when you have children and parents who are having difficulty at home with a runaway situation or ungovernable situation or even truancy, you want to. Johnny Gray Jones was instrumental and helpful with regard to how we would address those issues. I would say on the outset that while it is a valuable resource, it was only one of a couple of 2 or 3 throughout the entire state. And in other jurisdictions, they were able to manage those same areas, ungovernable, truant, runaways, et cetera, without necessarily having that. And so while we are working together with law enforcement, with the judges to try to develop alternatives to address the lack of that particular provision of service in our community, we're still going to be able to do that even in the absence of Johnny Gray Jones.
Thank you so much. We're running on 10 minutes, and we're trying to be mindful of your time.
Do you want to say anything about the millage failing to pass?
Oh, yes. Well, I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, it would have been great to have the millage because, again, what we had with the millage is we've largely operated the criminal justice millage. The last time that the citizens of this parish approved that was 1957. And so we were still operating in 2023 with a millage that was approved, before most of us in here were born. And of course, if I asked you right now if I would pay you what they were paying someone in 1957 to operate, I'm sure none of us would take that. And so it was an important opportunity, we believe, to provide resources, not just to juvenile crime, but there was a criminal justice millage. So these resources would be shared throughout the law enforcement community to allow us, frankly, to build the village around our children, around our community, to put resources in place to ultimately address many of the issues that we've talked about here tonight. And in the absence of that millage, we continue to do what we've done since 1957, which is marshal the resources that we've been given, leverage the partnerships that we have, and do what we've been able to do to keep the public safe. Certainly, if that opportunity comes again, certainly ask the citizens to reconsider. But that's where we are.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We have a question that says, I want to live in a safer community. How can I get more involved as a concerned community member? And what can citizens do to help support our teachers? 3 parts, same person. Given everything I've heard tonight, how can I be hopeful that we are headed in the right direction?
On a safer community, let me speak about that just a little bit. Obviously, the police could not be everywhere at every moment of the day. There are some options that citizen involvement could greatly help us. Be our eyes and our ears. You live in a community day in and day out. You know better than we do when something just don't look right. Something is out of place. That's the time to give us a call and let us respond and reflect or change things before they occur. Another great thing, the Shreveport Police Department, the Caddo Parish Sheriff's Department, the Bossier City Police, the Bossier Sheriff Department, we all have auxiliary programs that some of you may or may not know about. You can go through a little bit of training with us. There is no age limit. You have to volunteer about 8 hours a month. And here's what you do. Once you go through the training with us, you and someone else becomes an auxiliary. I provide you with a uniform. You can come anytime to the police department, check out a marked patrol car, the same one that officers patrol the street in each day. You can go back to your neighborhood and ride around as long as you want. We ask that you do not engage anybody. Do not engage anybody. What you do, reach over and pick up that radio, and if you're riding up in this area and you're in the daytime, you say, headquarters, send 1B1 over to this location. There appears to be a problem. You can really, really help us. As I said earlier, some of the solutions to our problems are not complicated. They're simple, they're easy. You just got to put forth the effort to help. And crooks, people that want to do wrong, bad things, they don't like to be seen. They don't want to be noticed. Be our eyes and ears. Be that deterrent that you can be. You can really, really help.
And you know, one thing I would add to that too is your presence here tonight is the first step to helping us to create a safe community. So I do congratulate all of you on being here today. You know, when we talk about how can you help a teacher, you know, what I tell you is that if you go to the nearest school near you or school where maybe your children or grandchildren go, they're always looking for volunteers. Even if you look at, you know, every presenter that presented on their social service tonight talked about opportunities to volunteer. Now, what I will tell you as a group, and I tell people, is just as simple. The best way you can help a teacher, the secret sauce to successful schools and successful teacher experiences are parents and having adults involved in children's life. I charge each of you to ensure that each of you has a child, that you are involved in their life and you're doing those things to help them to achieve their wildest dreams. And I don't care if you don't have children. I don't care if you don't have grandchildren. I don't care if you know that you don't really know of a child. I want you to find one somewhere and take time to invest in one child. And that is the way we begin to change the environment that our teachers and ultimately our children experience every day in school.
2 minutes.
I think we call it there. I really appreciate the four panelists with Mayor Arceneaux. I appreciate everyone making the time to be here. Gary, I don't know if you have any final words, but please encourage everyone to visit the tables that are set up in the lobby. These are opportunities to volunteer, opportunities to get more involved in making our community safer. Thank you so much.
I want to say thank you also to Southern University. Thank you to the panelists for showing up, and to our DECA students. These students represent Green Oaks academic and performing arts here in our community, and they have represented before at the state and national. So we are really pleased to have them help us. Thank you guys for coming out.